So this begins the process for the Tyre amber ale clone recipe that I'm going to be making today. This recipe calls for a 5-gallon. This is the first time I'm doing a 5-gallon. Right now what we're going to do is go grab the ice and the water that you need. Typically they suggest stuff that's good in pH levels, so like spring water, not distilled or anything like that. Apparently the flavor profile is different. Last 2 times, my cashmere actually is bottled right now, and we had American wheat before. We'll go to the store, grab the ice and the spring water, come back, and then we'll get our yeast out, and then we'll wait until we can brew. So one thing that's pretty difficult about being a home brewer in Arizona is definitely the heat. We are getting into our summer months. You can easily reach 100, 110. Being a Southwest brewer is definitely going to make this challenging, but it should be fine. You can buy refrigerators if you want, so you can set certain temperatures. But that's probably the hardest part about brewing in the Southwest, especially in the summertime here. It's a horrible time to brew beer, but man, we're doing it anyway. So we have our spring water and our ice. We're gonna go put those in the chiller. Take the yeast out at around 1500. Then 3 hours after that, we'll start sanitizing everything. Once everything is sanitized and everything has the contact time, then we'll start brewing. Okay, so we have our kit. We have our water. This is about 6 gallons here. This should work. I have extra as well, so I just bought some more. And the ice. So wait an hour or so, and then we'll get this going. This is the recipe kit that I got from Northern Brewing. Today we're going to be making the amber ale. This is also going to be a larger batch than my previous 2 cooks. Pop it open. Comes with instructions on how to do it, everything from the fermentation all the way to bottling. First off, we have our malted, this is actually the first time I'm going to be using this. This is a Munich malt extract syrup. This is about 6 pounds of this stuff. Camera would like to focus today. Come on, here you go. So yeah, that big old thing of syrup. It's the first time I'm using that too. We have our hops. 2 kinds of hops here. German Hersbrucker and German Perle. Or Perle. Milk bag. This is the milk bag. This is like this is what you dip into the kettle. Pretty much the first thing, I think. I haven't read it yet though. Fizz drops for your bottles, conditioning, stuff I mentioned in the previous video for the cashmere. If this wants to really focus in for me, there you go. This is the grain, as I previously just mentioned. This is probably what we're going to be putting in that mill bag. So that, and then last thing in the box, aside from that, aside from my syrup, is the DME. This is what basically makes the entire thing beer. Malted barley and water. It says right there, if you can read it. But yeah, this is everything that's in the kit. Everything we're going to be using today. So let's get into it. Alright, so what just occurred right now is we have just cleaned all of our equipment. Let me introduce you to our new fermenter. Big mouth bubbler. Got this for about 90 bucks on the Northern Brewing website. This, and then I also got this big kettle you see in the sink here. All of this equipment I think I got for about, and including the recipe kit, which is over here on our stove. All of that, about 210, 220, about as much as my first kit. So not too bad for all the stuff I have here. But yeah, so we're going to put our yeast on the counter 3 hours prior to the cook, and we'll come right back. Now let's show you the big kettle here, since it's done contact time wise. Okay, this is the Mega Pot 1.2. quite a big kettle. This was originally about $139. I got this for about $38. It was on sale. Again, all of this for like $200 is not too bad, especially since you can use this for not just extract brewing. Come back in about 3 hours and then start cooking. Another thing too with brewing is that you have to have something to chill the wort. So right now I just have a chest filled with ice. This is a pretty redneck way of doing it. You can buy what's called an immersion chiller, which does cool your wort a lot faster. But basically what we're going to do is I'm going to take all this ice out, and when the hot kettle is here, I'm going to pour it all. I'm going to put the kettle in and pour the ice in then afterwards. I made a mistake the first time I started brewing. The first lesson I learned is to actually get a lot of ice. You want to get to where the kettle is cool to touch, so that when you pour it into the fermenter, the yeast doesn't get killed. It's the only reason why you're chilling it, like so. The yeast is very, I guess you could say, sensitive in that matter. Probably the most sensitive ingredient. But yeah, wort chiller. This is a bit redneck. I don't have an immersion chiller just yet. I'll probably buy one for the next one if we get more involved. So, but yeah. All right, the yeast is going to yeast will be done here in about an hour or so. So we'll begin the brew right now. So first order of business is to collect and heat 2.5 gallons of water. Pour it in there. That's a full gallon. Probably just go to about, oops. We are going to account for evaporation, so this should be way more than enough. Here is our pot full of water. Next order of business is to heat. Right here. And then I have my grains in this little bag here. This is the mesh bag that it comes with. We're gonna put this and steep it until it hits 170. Once we steep it, it's pretty good. Okay, set our timer for 20 minutes. Let this steep. Here's how the kettle looks currently. We're at about almost 5 minutes in right now. A little worried about the pot size. The kettle might be a little too small, but good thing is we have an emergency kettle, the one that I showed earlier, the mega pot. So we still have that. You can always transfer to this. But so far so good. It really is starting to look already kind of, the color is already there. Obviously you can't see it right now, but yeah, color is already starting to look amber. So this is also a good time to test my digital thermometer and my food thermometer. I was unsure last time how hot the kettle was before I put it in the fermenter, so I'm trying to use both of these to make sure. This one we're reading right now 106, 112. This one says 112, 113, so I'd say it's accurate. Again, starting to get a nice color in there right now. That's how it's looking. Pretty good to me so far. 119 degrees current temperature. And then almost about to get to 170 here soon. Good thing to remember too is even if it is a little high where the water is, we also have to account for evaporation. Obviously, when you start to boil water, it goes up in the air, and you'll start to see a lot of steam start to boil up here soon as we start adding the DME, which should be shortly. But yeah, the counting-ish might be a little full, which is fine. I'm a little worried about this syrup here, but again, worst case scenario, we do have the other pot. So, change of plans. I have noticed something. What we're going to be doing right now is because this pot is actually a little too small, we're actually going to put it in here and put it on this hot plate over here. I overestimated how much stuff we'll be putting in here. So yeah, we're using this. Here's our transfer. We're going to have to get this up to about 200 degrees just to even be viable. But yeah, the next step is to put our DME in there, which is this stuff right here. And then later on, during the last 15 minutes, put in our syrup. This is going to give us a lot more space to work with just because the syrup is going to probably overflow. And I really don't want to mess it up because once you mess it up, it's not good anymore. So I'm just going to wait for this to boil, put our hops in and our DME, and then we'll start the timer. Because of my impatience, because I wanted to make this 5-gallon kit sooner, because it takes about 6 weeks to complete, we're going to have to wait for the hot plate to heat this entire 8-gallon kettle. Mistakes were made, but we will complete this batch. Rest assured. I also am going to try to figure out how I'm going to fit that enormous kettle into this small little cooler. Moral of the story is, patience is a virtue. Okay, so now that our pot is at a boil, we're going to add the Pilsen Light malt extract. Pour it in, it's on. We are live. All right, and it's empty with our spoon here. Okay, so then we're gonna add our Perle hops, this as well. Okay. I'm gonna stir that in as well. Okay, put our lid back on, make sure it's boiling. Retain that temperature. We'll show you as what it's doing right now. So right now we have our Pilsen extract in there and our hops. Wait for 60 minutes. At the last 15 minutes of the boil, we add our syrup and our Hersbrucker hops. Should get every little drop, everything. There we go. Okay. Hops are added, and this is the first time adding the syrup. It's all 6 pounds of it. Yep. I'm gonna stir it in, nice and stirring. Make sure none of it sticks to the bottom and burns. And all that's in there is just the malted barley. Make sure you get every little drop. I'm kind of scraping the bottom, trying to make sure all of that syrup is sticking. Kind of let that kind of spin around for a little bit before I keep spinning. As you can see, we're kind of getting our little color there. So it's almost out, huh? Keep going until most of that is out. Every little drop. None of it sticks. So when we pour it out, it's not too difficult to put it into the fermenter, so all that sludge at the bottom doesn't burn. You'll be able to taste that. A lot of syrup. Jeez whiz. Yeah. It's a lot of stuff. Now that our syrup is in and our additional hops are in, we're gonna wait for the next 10 minutes. We're gonna then put our kettle into an ice bath. Okay, it has been a full hour since we have been boiling. So now that the boil is done, we're going to kill our heat here. All right, like so. Okay, so now that our kettle is in the sink, we are now giving it an ice bath as cold as possible. Wort cools down fast. Plug and fill it all the way to the top. And this needs to reach about 68 degrees for the yeast to not get killed. It's probably going to take a minute because we are still outputting steam. Less contamination the better, so we're just going to top it off. Last time I waited 30 minutes, it might take more. Again, this is why I should get an immersion chiller. Make life a lot easier for me. So, but as long as the kettle is cool to the touch, I'm also going to use my food thermometer over there. Yeah, we'll come back to here in about 30 minutes. It's been more than 30 minutes now. Kind of went a little long, but I'll show you the temperature that it's at right now. We're reading a steady 70 degrees. Obviously, I just pull it out, so it's cooler, but 70 degrees, that is in the zone where we can put it in the fermenter. So the next step for our brewing process is to fill this guy up to 2 gallons of cold water. All right, and we already have everything else is sanitized, so we're going to just pour this in. 2 full of these. Okay, there's one. Okay. There we have 2 gallons of the water. Pour in the wort. So we'll start pouring this in. Okay, so instead of breaking all this equipment, we're actually just going to do it on the ground. I know it looks kind of dirt nasty, but all right, here we go. Pour it in. Okay, that should be most of it. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so all of the wort is in here now. I'm gonna attempt to pick this up, put it on the counter. So now that our wort is inside here, we can now toss all of this. Now not useful to us. All of our juice is in here. The good feeling juice. It is all in there now. So, does that look muddy? Okay. Okay, so it says add more cold water as needed. We can add a little bit more, but not too much. We want to leave some room for the yeast to do its magic. We actually do want to leave out some for that because there's quite a bit in here. This is quite big, so we'll fill it up to where that notch is. Not too much though. We don't want to go too crazy here. I think this will do. We want to leave some room for all that head. So it's quite a lot already. I think this is it. We're gonna take our sanitized scissors and our yeast here. And our yeast, okay. And we're gonna kind of give it a good shake. Okay. Making sure all of it, bottom there. Cut at the top here. All right, here we go. You just sprinkle it in there like so. You should get most of it. Okay. Most of that stuff in there. All right, our yeast has been added. Okay, and you're gonna take your airlock, fill it with tap water up to that fill line there. All right, in there. Get your stopper. Get your lid on there. Okay. Stopper in there, your lid. Fix your airlock in there. And now your fermentation canister is now ready to go. Now for the long and arduous fermentation process. And for 5 gallon, this is 3 weeks. Our 5 gallon is ready. All I have to do now is wait. All we do now is wait for the yeast to, actually you're already starting to see bubbles here.
6 weeks?
Yeah, so it's 3 weeks to ferment, 2 weeks to condition in the bottles. And then we have ourselves a Phat Tyre clone. So next thing is for the bubbles. And once we start seeing, if we start seeing foam and crossing, it's a success. So that has been brew day for the Phat Tyre Amber Ale. Definitely learned some things. Next time we will be more prepared, but I think we got quite the amount. So signing off.